Haven't been working for the past 6 months. So I'm sure you guys are also asking, okay, so if you haven't been working for the past 6 months, where did the money come from? Then I got a gig that paid like £5,000 for 2.5 weeks of work. I don't know, it almost killed us, but it's fine. How did I decide on making property my first investment? And honestly, to answer that question, I looked at all of these things and I thought to myself, like, this is an entire degree. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Bomika Zulupindo. I am a clinical psychologist and a doctorate student at the University of Oxford. For those of you who are returning to the channel, welcome. It's always great to have you guys. So I recently shared on Instagram that I was able to pay off my home loan in 2 years instead of 20 years. And I just wanted to share a little bit more about how I went about through that process. And I also kind of opened the space for you guys to kind of ask questions. It's quite interesting because in all the questions that I got, no one really asked about anything that had to do with, like, I guess, investing in property, acquiring property, being a first-time home buyer, picking a place that you're going to buy, investing in property, and so forth. None of that. The questions I got were how. Another one is 2 years, well, impressive. Please teach us your ways. Guys, what formula did you apply to pay off property in 2 years? What country? Okay, the country is a good one, and I think that's also an important one. How did you do it? Your 2 years. There's a whole lot more. Okay, this one was also quite interesting. How did you manage to get the funds, and was it a better investment to pay it off, or could have the cash been used to expand your portfolio? I think that was quite an interesting one. And then another one was, okay, so what drew you to investing in real estate as your first major investment? So I'm going to try to answer these questions as best as I can. And honestly, I think this video should literally be 2 minutes because the answer is very simple. How? Save. Where did the money come from? I think I said at the beginning of the video that I'm a psychologist. The money came from me being a psychologist. And that's it. Like, I could end the video there. But I think, let me just give you a little bit of a backstory, because I feel like for a lot of people, they think I managed to pay off the property in 2 years simply because, I don't know, some miracle happened within the 2 years. But a lot of what happened within that 2 years actually was something that started in my childhood. So as a child, I used to be that child, guys, that I loved having money. Like, I loved having money. So I used to save a lot. And I used to get like so much money from like my relatives. I used to get money from like my parents and so forth. So whenever I got money, I'd save it. I'd save so much money to the point where like my siblings, even my mom, like, she would come and they would borrow money from me and they'd be like, hey, can you give us money? And I think even as a child, it was never about having the money to do something with it. It was, I just liked the idea of having money. And I just liked not being in a position where I lacked anything. And I also think maybe because I just didn't like asking people for stuff. So I just wanted to know that I'm in a position where I could actually do all of these stuff for myself. Of course, like, the psychologists that are going to watch this video are going to want to analyze me, and each to their own. But anyway, yeah, so as a child, never liked borrowing money, never liked asking for stuff. I liked doing things myself. So I ended up saving a lot of money. But I ended up also not using any of that money, because most times, like, other people would then take that money and then I'd end up having to save again. So just having that mindset as a child that I never want to be in a position where I have lack or where I'm not able to do the stuff that I want to do, then became the thing that kind of built that discipline within me. And then I went to university, and honestly, I feel like university was kind of the foundation of what made it possible for me to be able to pay off a home loan in 2 years. And essentially, when I got to university, the one thing that I didn't want to have was a student loan. Like, I told myself, there is no way that I'm going to have a loan, because having a loan then means that by the time I finish studying, then I'm going to have to pay that loan back, which means whatever money I'm making, it's kind of money that I make to pay off arrears that I accumulate over the years. So that became like a personal target for me. I couldn't save money at the time because I didn't have the money to save. So then I had to think about, how can I actually make money while I am in university so that I don't take out student loans. The only way I could make that kind of money as a student was to actually get scholarships. So I feel like a lot of people who are in humanities, and also I guess specifically psychology, they would know that getting funding in undergrad and even honors, like I feel like even honors was quite difficult for me. Like there's no way. So then the only other way I could make money was studying really hard and just getting merit scholarships from the university, so that I don't find myself in a position where I have to take out student loans. And I think that was a big thing. So I guess lesson number one, or like formula mixture number one, is don't find yourself in a situation where you have debt. If you can, minimize debt as much as possible. Like I know when I was in varsity, like people would take like accounts for like clothing and things like that, and I'm just like, at this age, where are you going to get money to pay that? So avoid debt. I know for a lot of people, student debt is something that's not avoidable, and also it's quite difficult to get any kind of scholarships, and merit scholarships are also honestly not the easiest thing to get. But in whatever way possible for yourself, like just making sure that you don't have any student debt. And if you do have student debt, finding ways to kind of help towards paying that off while you're still studying, so that by the time you actually start working, there isn't too much pressure to be able to kind of pull in most of your resources into that. So debt is a big one. So I avoided debt at all costs. Like I made sure I didn't get any debt. The second lesson, and honestly, like this was something that I was positioned into and not necessarily something that I made a conscious decision of, which was because of the training in psychology that you only qualify, specifically in South Africa, when you have a master's, and when you're abroad, when you have a PhD. It just meant I would stay in school longer than my peers. And for me, that also meant being okay with feeling like I'm behind when it comes to certain things that my friends have. Because I just realized actually, like when I went into masters and I was still training, like my friends were getting cars, they were moving into apartments. I was still there sleeping in a single bed in student accommodation. So I think the notion of not comparing myself to other people and just being okay with the position that I'm in was also a significant thing that made this possible for me, because it then meant when I was in a position where I was able to earn money, I wasn't trying to catch up with other people or do things like other people were doing. I just knew that, this is how my life looks. I need to then now think about what are some of the things that are a priority for me. And when I did eventually start working in 2020, there wasn't a shift in terms of my lifestyle. I still lived like I was a student, and I guess small things would change, man. Like I realized that, so when I started working, the decision was I need to save a minimum of half of my salary. Like that was something that I was just like, I have to do that. And I want to save as much as possible of my salary. And at that time, I didn't even know what I was saving it for. Like it was that little girl that used to save a lot that was just like, okay, now you're making money, now you're earning money. How do I make sure that I save a lot of this money? And that's when I started looking into like, what do people do with money? Like, where do people put their money? How do they make money work for them rather than like just having it in an account? And also, when you're saving this money, like, what are you saving it for? Like, what are you going to do with it after you save it? So then I started watching this YouTuber. Her name is Nicolette Mashile, and I think her channel was called Financial Fitness Bunny. Listen, guys, I used to live on that channel. She used to speak a lot about like you need multiple streams of income. And I'm just like, hold up. Like, I've just started earning money. I've never worked before. The only thing I could do at the time, because I was still a trainee psychologist, was actually literally just do my internship. And there was actually no space to actually have multiple streams of income. So I was just like, okay, that part of me is something that I need to think about. But in essence, I don't have capacity for that. So what else is possible? She spoke about equities. She spoke about trading. She spoke about trust. She spoke about investing in property. And I looked at all of these things and I was just like, and I guess this also answers the question of how did I decide on making property my first investment? And honestly, to answer that question, I looked at all of these things and I thought to myself, like, this is an entire degree. Like, I have no clue how to trade. I don't know. I don't understand like equities. I used to do accounting in high school, but that's as far as money and financial related stuff. And at that time, I also had a nonprofit organization that I had established. I was learning how to be an entrepreneur. I was learning how to run a nonprofit. I was learning how to be a psychologist. I was also a student at the time. There was just so much that was going on. And I was just like, at the time, there's no way, like, I need to hire someone that could actually do this for me, that I can say, okay, so this is the money I have, kind of do with the money and put the money where it needs to go so that I don't have to worry about that. So this was in 2020. And then, so this was in 2020, I started looking for like a financial advisor. I'm like, how do you even get a good financial advisor? And then I uncovered that there's also like a wealth manager. And I'm like, whoa, okay, maybe I want a wealth manager, not just like a financial advisor, because apparently like they do different things. And then I started working with this guy who was a wealth manager. And honestly, like, he was really amazing because he taught me a lot of the stuff that I didn't know about. And he set up a lot of things that I didn't know I needed to set up before I can even think about like investing to actually make money that I can enjoy in my youth. So things like retirement annuity, guys, I didn't know I needed retirement annuity. I didn't know that I needed salary protection. I didn't know that I need like disability cover and like life cover and all of those stuff, that if anything happens to me and I'm not able to work for that income, then I still get it. So the salary protection was for that. There was some illness related stuff. Like, there was a whole bunch of stuff that I then found out I need to actually set up before I can even think about like saving my money or investing my money. And that was just mind blowing to me, because I was just like, whoa, I thought like I had a lot of money. Now I'm realizing, and I think at internship, like, we probably, after tax internship, we probably got like 40K. So in rands, so I guess in pounds would be divided by 23. So in a month we got like 40,000. I might be overestimating, it might be 39, but it was close enough to 40. And then I'm just like, oh, my 40,000 is going away. Like there are just so many stuff that I have to pay for that I'm just like, it's a lot. But anyway, I started setting all of that up. I realized that I can save my salary, but probably not as much as I thought I could save. If at the time I was earning 40,000, the goal was to save like 20,000, because that's half of it. I probably ended up, after having to pay all the other expenses like living expenses, rent, and then all these things that are now a surprise to me, I probably had like maybe 15,000 to save. And then, yeah, so I started saving that. I used to take 5,000 and then I tried to do like easy equities and things like that. But I had no clue what stocks to invest in. Like, I would just like gamble with it and be like, okay, let me try understand. But I just found it so difficult to understand what to invest in, when to invest, how to keep track of it. When do I sell the stock? When do I keep the stock? and it just felt extremely overwhelming. So that year I did like put some money into stocks, and I specifically like was doing like South African markets, and they're just like, oh no, like you need to do like markets abroad. And I'm just like, flipping hell, like I'm still trying to figure out this market. Now I'm told to figure another market out, and it just felt like too much. And even though like I now had the guy that was like a wealth manager, I mean, there was only so much he could do. I remember at the time I had like a lump sum of money that I had saved up over the years. So I took that, and then I put it like, he put it like in unit trusts, and then they had different portfolios and did that. And then I started setting up like other stuff as well. I remember I used to have like tax-free investment thing, and then there was another one. There was just, I ended up not knowing where my money was going. I knew it was somewhere, like it was somewhere in the universe, it was somewhere in South Africa, it was somewhere with some business. It just felt like I was probably, I mean, I wasn't losing money in the sense that the money was there, I could still access it, but I just had no clue where it was. Like I didn't know what I invested in, how, when, how much returns I'm supposed to get from that. And it just felt like it's not making any sense to me. And it ended up just being extremely overwhelming for me. And I'm just like, yeah, this is not my portion. Like I can't keep track of this. So I need to then think about something that makes a little more logical sense, something that's not going to need me to get another degree, something that, because I mean, people make it seem like if you get a financial advisor or a wealth manager or asset manager or whatever, then suddenly like those people solve all your problems. They didn't solve my problems, because there's only so much they could do. And then I had to then manage the rest of the money. Or it was better if you put like a lump sum of money into that, so you make more money when there's like a lump sum. And it's just like, even just speaking about it now is stressing me out. So I just opted to not get involved with that. And yeah, at the time, maybe like for people who know how to do it, it seems naive that my response is I didn't know how to do it, and I couldn't find someone who could do it for me. And therefore, that's why I chose to move away from that. Yeah, like that's not a sufficient answer. But for me, it just didn't make sense. And I didn't know how to pool the money into one profit generating equity or stock or whatever else is in the market to be able to see it actually make money and generate money. Property felt easy. If I have a building and I get a loan and I take out that loan, I know exactly how much I owe you. I know exactly how much I need to save to pay you back. And at the end of the day, I know where to find my money, because the money is in that building. And if I want to sell it, I can sell it. If I want to rent it out, I can rent it out. So that's essentially how I kind of filtered through. And I was just like, not for me. And I'm just going to invest in property. So yeah, so that's how I then made my decision that property is where I'm at. And then the other stuff, they can catch me another time. Or whenever I meet someone that could actually do it. So if you are someone that is just like, girl, I got you, then let's meet. Let's make money. I have the money. I will give it to you. You do the things that need to be done, but also don't scam me. Because I know in South Africa, when I was home, like now in December, they tried to scam me. But anyway, we derailing. So that was 2020, right? So 2020 was my internship. Fast forward to when I finally qualify, which was 2022. Yeah, 2022, because that's when I moved to Oxford. 2022, so the property related stuff starts. And I mean specifically because that's when I actually bought or took out the home loan for the property. So 2022, I then became a qualified psychologist, and I'm just like, this is my time. Nicolette Mashile said that you must have multiple streams of income. At the time, I was working for government. I then started a private practice. I then also worked for another private practice that did medical legal stuff. I almost burnt myself down because I would work my 9 to 5, And then I would then work the private practice stuff for my private practice. And then I'd also work the medical legal stuff. I made a lot of money that year, but I was burnt out. By the time September came and I had to leave for Oxford, I was burnt out. That was not sustainable for me. Having multiple streams of income that were just like draining for me didn't make sense. And on top of that, I still had the nonprofit organization. And of course, I still had to do work that had to do with the nonprofit. So I literally didn't have time. The only thing I had time to do in that year was literally to go to gym, and I would drag myself to gym and to go to swimming lessons. That's it. And the only other time I'd get a break was when I'd go to Johannesburg, because at the time I was living in Limpopo, was when I could go to Johannesburg to visit my sister. And even then, like, my sister knew I had to do therapy sessions. I had to work on some of the medical legal stuff, in between stuff. I just didn't have a life. And it didn't make sense for me why I wanted to make so much money and still not be able to enjoy that money. At what cost, guys? Because I couldn't use that money. I didn't know what I was going to do with that money. I was still saving it, which in the end was fine, because when I was leaving for Oxford and I had to sell my car, which is the only debt I had. Like, the car was the only debt I accumulated at that time, I guess. In the 2 years I had been working, only had debt for a car, had to sell my car. When I was getting furniture for my apartment, like, I ended up losing so much money from that, because like I'd buy like super expensive furniture because I was just like, I'm such a sentimental person, I'll keep this. I remember when I was buying a washing machine, like I'd buy stupid things, man. I mean, it's not stupid things because they're meaningful things, and I'd still do that again. But like, instead of buying like a 3,000 Rand washing machine, I'd buy a 10,000 Rand washing machine because it's bigger and it has like that add-on button, like that you can, when you start a machine and then you can like pause it and then press the add-on button, and then like a top shelf opens and you can, guys, I would pay more money to get things like that. So when I started having those multiple stream of income, I still didn't get a sense of what I'm going to do with that money. I guess in my head, I was just like, let me make a lot of money and then I'll save it. And then once I've saved all of that money, then I can buy property cash, right? So I think that was my logic at the time. And then fast forward to September 2020, which is when I decided to buy the property. I had to sell everything because I was moving to Oxford. And I was just like, actually, this is the one time in my life where I felt like I was regressing. And it was literally at that point in my life where I was just like, okay, so everything that I've worked so hard for to try and get, like, it felt like I had nothing to show for it. So I'm just like, yeah, the goal was to save enough money to buy a property cash, but realistically, when is that going to happen? So I then decided to take the plunge, and then I invested in a property that was R1 million. Yeah, it was 1 point something million. It was 1 point something million, but I remember my home loan was R1 million. And then because I had the money saved up, I could pay I didn't have to pay like transfer fees or things like that, but you had to pay like a deposit. I think, yeah, I don't want to lie. Let me not think and estimate the deposit, but you had to pay like a deposit. And then I think there was something else I had to pay. But I then ended up using the money I had saved to pay for that, use the money I had saved to pay for like the difference when I was selling my car, and other stuff like small things that I had to pay when I was kind of withdrawing from the contracts that was supposed to be X amount of years, and then it was a penalty fee. So then ended up doing that, and then I now had a bit more money that was still left that I could use during my time in Oxford. And when I decided to get the property, I was just like, it's fine. I'll still be able to like pay month to month even before I get a tenant for that apartment. And then, yeah, so that's how I then made that decision. So now after I bought the property, I was just like, okay, so I have this thing now. I now owe R1 million. So to answer your question, guys, how did I get the money? As a psychologist working in the UK, you get a minimum salary of like I think it's 56,000. Yeah, I think band A is like, you start off at like 56,000. If you're lucky, it's slightly more. So that's like your annual income here. So 56,000 is in fact R1,000,000, right? So with me, I was working part-time as a psychologist. So I earned half of that. So it took me 2 years, because when I started working as a psychologist in the UK, I earned that money and half, and it took me 2 years to basically build up that £50,000, and then £50,000 is essentially 1,000,000 rand. Hey, let me do my maths. 50,000 pounds, which is what I earned in 2 years, is 1.1 million. So it's 1,150,000. Yeah, so it's 1,150,000. So that's where the money came from, guys. I basically saved my entire earnings when I was working as a psychologist. Well, I still am. I don't know why I'm saying past tense as if I've retired. So saved up all of the money that I was getting. And what I did was I set up a 32 days notice account, where immediately the money lands in my bank account. The 32 days notice account takes it, and then I can't access it. And I guess when it came to actually repaying the loan, what I'd do is whenever I'd hit like £10,000, which is about 230,000, I'd then transfer the money to South Africa and then use that to pay it off as a lump sum, rather than, like, I know some people say pay more of a monthly installment rather than like paying lump sums. And honestly, for me, I just felt like doing that probably doesn't change the time frame you pay, because what the bank does, the more you pay, the more they increase the interest rate, but then they reduce your monthly installment. So I remember when I started paying off my home loan, probably like it was like 10 point something, almost 11,000, and by the time I finished, it was 2,000 rand. So I went from like paying like, let's say 11,000 rand with maybe an interest rate of maybe like 7-8%. And by the time I finished, I was paying 2,000 rand, but the interest rate was 14%, because they're trying to get that exact same amount of money out of me, but making sure that they're getting it out in the 20 years. So yeah, I just found it easier that when I have like a huge sum of money, I just pay it in, rather than like trying to add a certain amount of money each month. And then what I also did, when they were reducing how much they were taking each month for their monthly installment, I'd still give them the same amount. So they would take 2,000 rand and I would give them the extra 8,000 rand as a repayment, so that I'm still paying the exact same amount every month. But on top of that, I'm also paying in the lump sums. And I think the downside, I guess, of paying it quickly is the fact that at the end, instead of them like paying lawyer fees for you to do like the title deed transfer, I'm the one that has to pay the lawyers. So honestly, I don't know how much they're going to charge me. I'm not expecting anything less than like 60 to almost 100,000. I would rather overestimate than underestimate, because I know it's going to shock me when it gets there. But yeah, because I'm canceling the loan literally 18 years before the due date, I have to pay the lawyers to do like the transfer fees and the things like that. And I know those are quite expensive, especially like when you're buying the property from an owner. So I don't know how much they're going to charge me when they're just transferring my name from the bank. And I know some of you guys are just like, oh no, but like you're also traveling, you're also like doing stuff. Yeah, but I'm doing those stuff, but I have this income that I was earning. Why do I keep saying past tense? Okay, maybe it's because I haven't been working for the past 6 months. So I'm sure you guys are also asking, okay, so if you haven't been working for the past 6 months, where did the money come from? So yeah, earned as a psychologist, and that on its own is sufficient to make up the million. But also in earning as a psychologist, of course, like some of the jobs that I got paid more than like the average kind of psychologist. Remember when I started off, they basically cheated me, but whatever they cheated me with was still sufficient for me to be able to save up, and it was enough for that year. And then in the second year, I was earning slightly more than what I earned in the first year, so I was able to save up more. And then also, I guess in the first year when I was traveling with the money that I had saved up when I was still in South Africa. And then obviously like that money ran out because pound, rand, like, yeah, it's just a lot. And then in the summer, we are allowed to actually work more than the 20 hours a week if your supervisor writes a letter. Then I got a gig that paid like £5,000 for 2.5 weeks of work. It almost killed us, but it's fine. Yeah, I worked that gig, worked that same gig again last year. They paid 3,000 this time, but I mean, it's still like, who will give you 3,000 in 2 weeks? Actually, that time it was 8 days. Like the last time was 8 days. Who will give you £3,000 in 8 days? So that money is also the money that I use for like traveling and things like that. And of course, like all of this money, guys, it gets taxed, because the 5,000 they taxed me, I think like was 1,500, almost 2,000. And in this one, again, like they tax you. The salary I earn, they tax. So everything that I had was taxed. And yeah, that's how I made my money. And yeah, I put it in the notice account and then use that to pay it off. Would I still consider to invest in property as like my main source of investment? Yes, I've just paid this one off. I'm trying to get another one. And the first one was 1 million. The ones that I'm looking at are like 3 million now. And I want to aim for the same thing, like paying them off in maximum 3 years. I mean, it's 3 million. So I must be a bit generous with myself. So I'm still going to try pay it off in 3 years. And even with that, like, I'm saying it's still my go-to investment, because I'm just like, at the end of the day, the value of that property probably like increased with like 100,000 over the past 2 years, maybe, or maybe even less. But also I'm getting money from my tenant, and with this new property, it's going to be an Airbnb. I'll get a lot more. And also, so the first apartment was in Johannesburg, the second one is going to be in Cape Town. But the property market in Cape Town, it's tough, guys. It's tough. I'm still struggling to get a place. So if you have a 3 million apartment that is available for me, please hit me up. I got you. So yeah, I want to invest in that, make it an Airbnb. I will definitely earn a lot more in Airbnb than having like a tenant. And also, like, I'm such a sentimental person, guys. Like, I want to live in the spaces that I do buy. And I'm so bummed every single time I go to Joburg and I'm not able to live in my apartment. I mean, honestly, I have an amazing tenant, but it would be nice to just live there. So specifically with this one, I definitely want to make it something that I can actually live in and also enjoy. So I guess in essence, like, main formulas or main tricks that I can say is that, firstly, guys, avoid debt at all costs. Like, avoid debt at all costs. Secondly, live beneath your means. Like, there's no reason why you must increase your lifestyle because suddenly, like, you have more money now, suddenly things must change. Like, I'm someone that doesn't like things. The one thing that I spend a lot of my money on is traveling, but other stuff, like, I don't spend money on those things. I'm always at home. I do enjoy experiences with friends. I do go out when I'm in Oxford, but aside from that, like, I'm not someone that's just like suddenly like flamboyant about money or things like that. So live with beneath your means is definitely another thing that I would say. Save, guys. Save. Listen to my childhood self. Save money. Save it. Save it. Have that discipline to actually put that money aside and don't touch it. If you don't have that discipline, put it in a 32 days notice. I know some of you guys will actually pay the penalty fee to get it out just before the 32 days. Me, I have discipline. If it's not there, if it's not in front of me, then to me it doesn't exist. So I don't think about it and I just make do with what I have. So yeah, guys, no magic trick, no fancy stuff. It's just money that I saved, and it's literally money that I saved based on what a psychologist earns here. And because I was also able to save that because I get the stipend from Rhodes, and a stipend from Rhodes is sufficient for a student life. I live and exist as a student, but I also work as a professional, and therefore I was able to save enough money to pay off my apartment in 2 years. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our story time. I hope that you guys found this to be quite insightful. And again, honestly, guys, highly recommend if you are working towards a specific kind of goal, like just focus on that. Other people have different goals, and that's why their lives look a little different from yours. And if you focus on your own race, own pace, and just focus on what you know, then I think it tends to just work out for the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, just comment in the comment section down below. Let us know what are some of the things that you have found helpful in terms of saving money, investing money. What makes you money? How can the rest of us learn from you and make money how you are making money? And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on anything. And I'll catch you guys next time. Mwah.